want to start. So we also have another, unfortunately, very unsettling and discouraging story here. This is in Common Dreams. And the title, Unsettling. New study reveals Arctic ocean warming for over a century. It is possible that the Arctic Ocean is more sensitive to greenhouse gases than previously thought, said one of the study's authors. I am just seeing this. This is from a couple of weeks ago. New research published Wednesday revealed the Arctic Ocean has been warming for decades longer than scientists previously understood, raising fresh concerns as the polar region faces the growing threat of a total loss of the seasonal ice that is crucial to the survival of the imperiled marine ecosystem. A study published in Science Advances found that the recent expansion of Atlantic waters into the Atlantic Ocean, a phenomenon known as Atlantification, offers undisputable evidence of the rapid changes occurring in this region. We reconstructed the history of Atlantification along the eastern Fram Strait during the past 800 years using precisely dated oceanographic, Jesus Christ, you guys can read it yourself, records the study's authors wrote, referring the maritime passage between Greenland and Svalbard. Our results show rapid changes in water mass properties that commenced in the early 20th century, several decades before the documented Atlantification by instrumental records. Study co-author Tessie Tommaso of the Institute of Polar Sciences at the National Research Council in Bologna, Italy, said in a statement that when we looked at the whole 800-year timescale, our temperature and salinity records look pretty constant, but all of a sudden at the start of the 20th century, you get this marked change in temperature and salinity. It really sticks out. So in other words, it looks as though our planet is even more susceptible to the greenhouse effect than we previously thought. And it seems like anytime I discuss climate, it's in this context of, guys, it's even worse than than the worst case scenarios figured it might be. And this is another one of those. We seem to be crossing lines, passing points of no return constantly, and continuing to get bad news about how far along in this crisis we are. And the lack of the unserious nature with which this is covered and reported on and discussed in political circles is quite discouraging. It just really is. It's I don't see a good outcome from any of this. I think we need to act now, and it will be too little too late, which is better than nothing. And it's a pretty pessimistic view to have on the issue, but I that's where the science is pointing us, you guys. We have done irreparable damage. And if we don't act like now, not in 5 years, not in a decade, now, we are going to continue to pay the price for that. And I say continue, not start, because we already are starting to pay the price for that with wildfires, with extreme weather events, with flooding, with rising temperatures that are leaving portions of the globe uninhabitable, droughts, etc. We're already seeing it. We're seeing melted permafrost. We're seeing icebergs breaking off of the poles. We're well on our way to the catastrophic results that we have created for ourselves. And that this issue is not taken more seriously and highlighted more consistently is quite discouraging. And I include myself in that, you guys. I should cover this more. What does any other issue mean if we don't have a habitable fucking planet? This is the issue of all issues, right? And of course, you could say maybe corruption becomes the issue of all issues because that's what's stopping us from actually addressing this or whatever. But you guys get what I'm saying. This issue needs to be addressed, or nothing else really seems to matter much, right? And this is why we need a Green New Deal and then some. And this is why so many liberals told us, you just have to vote Biden because otherwise Trump's going to destroy the planet. Well, what's Biden doing? Biden's granting a bunch of drilling permits. Biden is slipping in, we're going to cover later today, slipping in benefits for big gas and oil companies in his Build Back Better bill, right? So we're not being remotely responsible about this. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit too, the framing and the rhetoric surrounding this stuff. We talk about fiscal responsibility in a completely backwards way. We talk about it as though not spending money is inherently responsible and spending money is inherently irresponsible or reckless. That's how it's framed, always. And that may be overly simplified, but broadly true for individuals, for currency users, right? You could say it's broadly irresponsible to spend more than you're bringing in every single month. Okay, fine. It's not the case for a currency issuer. What's responsible for a currency issuer is to implement policy that is most beneficial to the constituents. In this case, saving the planet, making sure we have a habitable planet is very much a responsible action for a government to take. You know what's an irresponsible action for a government to take? To allow the planet to burn so as to avoid seeing an arbitrary number on a fucking spreadsheet. If you want to sit there and tell me that's responsible, we can't even have a conversation because there's too much of a disconnect there. It's not. But yet, how does the entire mainstream media frame this stuff? Oh, you want to spend a few trillion on the climate? How irresponsible, how reckless, how are you going to pay for it? As opposed to, why don't you scoff at Joe Manchin and Republicans and cinema and all that? Why don't you scoff at them and say, I'm sorry, to avoid seeing a number you don't want to see on a spreadsheet, you're willing to let the planet burn and all of its constituents die, all of its residents die. You're willing to let all of us perish and suffer in order to avoid seeing a number you don't want to see on a balance sheet. Do not fall for that. Do not fall for this idea that fiscal responsibility amounts to not spending money. It is almost always the opposite, you guys. Of course, you can come up with a scenario where spending money is irresponsible. For example, spending it on billionaires or banks or corporations. I would say that's probably irresponsible in an economy that already serves them endlessly, right? But broadly speaking, the framing of fiscal responsibility is almost entirely backwards. You can just flip it around 180 degrees and you're at the truth. It's like a negative indicator. If the media says this spending is irresponsible, it's probably quite responsible. It's probably necessary. It's probably the only responsible option on the table. In fact, it's probably not even enough to be responsible. It's probably the bare minimum that's not even enough. But they frame it completely backwards. It's, on this one, I'm reminded of who was it that said, if you don't read the papers, you're uninformed, and if you do read them, you're misinformed. I think it was Mark Twain that said that, right? Well, yeah, if you pay attention to the media on issues surrounding fiscal spending, you're misinformed. You're ill-informed because they're going to frame it to you as though public spending is irresponsible from the get-go, inherently. We desperately need to address the climate. We are starting to see the effects already. I'll just tell you guys, for my generation, like, I wouldn't dream of having kids. I would not dream of it. And this is one of the reasons why. Is that the world that we want to be creating? Where an entire generation of people says, I don't want to reproduce because what kind of world am I bringing a child into? What, so they can fucking burn up? So they can die of thirst in a place that can't have access to water? What, so that they can have their house flooded when sea levels rise? Why would I have a child? So that they can sit there through a bunch of extreme weather events? Why would I have a child? This is affecting an entire generation's ability to live their life, and it's going to continue to affect every generation going forward in worse and worse ways, and we are entirely refusing to address it. It's completely confounding to any, like, if an alien came down right now and looked at the situation and said, yo, you guys know you only have X number of years left, right? Like, if you don't address this. And to all the politicians say, well, you don't understand the political constraints, and we don't want to put too big of a number on our balance sheet. See, it would be irresponsible for us to save the planet and save the species. I mean, imagine the look on this creature's face. Just imagine. They'd be like, okay, no intelligent life here, back home I go, right? And that is one of the answers to the Fermi paradox, by the way. The paradox being, why haven't we seen aliens when the likelihood is that there are like billions of other life forms out there? Why haven't we seen any of them? Well, there are a number of potential answers to that. This is a total aside, but a number of potential answers that perhaps we're just not anywhere close enough to another civilization to see them because the universe is so vast. One of the answers people have given is they're intelligent. They must be intelligent if they can travel to us. They must be far advanced from where we are. They look down at us and they go, they're still bombing each other. They still have each other in cages. Like they can't even figure their own shit out. There's no intelligent life here. They're not worth our time. That's one of the, that's a seriously contemplated answer to the Fermi paradox. And this would be an example of why. Because we won't even act to save our planet out of fear of a number on a balance sheet. What a stupid fucking species we are. I hope to see this addressed very soon. I'm not naive enough to expect it to be. And that is unfortunately where we sit with the issue of climate. So we also have